Today's video is brought to you by AlmostHeaven.com. Handcrafting at-home saunas since 1977. Want better sleep, less stress, and faster recovery? Now's the perfect time. Shop saunas, cold plunges, hybrids, and accessories. Use our exclusive code at checkout to save 5%. Link below.
Back alongside my good friend Bo Parrish with a new look and a new day. Are you opposed to having longer hair, Bo?
Evidently, my barber was. We had different definitions of what a buzz cut was, but I guess as they always say, hair will grow back. And in time, I guess I'm looking a little more aerodynamic. It certainly doesn't hide the gray, though.
Well, maybe it's inspired me. Maybe it's time for me to get a haircut too. Uh, Today is about maybe doing things based on the reaction you get from somebody else. When someone says, I'm not interested, or maybe they say, I don't want what you can do, or I don't think you can do what you say you do. We're talking about opposition and the obstacles people put in front of us and how to overcome those, Bo. And it can be kind of off-putting and a little scary when someone says, I'm not interested.
Well, Dave, that is a perfect lead into our conversation today on just the general topic of opposition. And we live in a world that is fiercely competitive. And certainly today, in this day and age, information is a commodity. So how many different ways can we introduce a concept that is familiar, but perhaps perceived in a different way? Opposition is really nothing more than an opportunity to further influence, to further add value, to further serve. It's natural instinct for us to oppose that which is not familiar. I just think back to my childhood and growing up, moving around. I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different cities. And so as the consummate new kid, I was constantly faced with new situations, new surroundings, new environments, different tendencies, different habits. And being the new kid, naturally, I was opposed because I was new, I was different, I hadn't grown up with the kids that were around me. And so I was met with a little bit of opposition in the sense that it was harder for me initially to build relationships, not because I was a bad guy, but just because I was the new guy. And I had to work a little bit harder. I had to seek people out intentionally for that opportunity to influence them in a positive way. And after all, I had to develop that ability, or else I would have no friends. I would be a loner. If I would have settled for, say, viewing opposition as an obstacle and just threw my hands in the air and said, oh, well, I'm the new kid, I'm not going to have any friends, so why even try? Then that opposition would have become a hurdle or an obstacle that I could have never overcome. So, it really was a lesson that I learned early on that has further helped me develop long-lasting relationships with anyone who opposes me in any way. It's not shutting me down just for the habit of shutting me down. It's really more of an opportunity where I am hearing, Bo, I'm not exactly sure, but I'll give you the opportunity to tell me more, to further convince me, to further educate me. I'm going to oppose naturally because I don't understand, because I'm not familiar, but it doesn't mean that I'm closing my mind forever to whatever it is you have to offer. Could be yourself, could be a product, could be a business idea, could be an opportunity to take a trip, to learn a new language. Anything new naturally could potentially be met with opposition. So it's all a matter of how we view that opposition that will determine our reaction. Is it an opportunity or is it an obstacle? That's what we're talking about.
I can see many examples in day-to-day real life, whether it's I can even kind of think of it in sports or in business or in relationship. And what comes to mind now is that you have to recognize and help change their point of view. Their mindset has to be shifted or realigned to understand and not be so fearful of who you are or what you have to offer.
Absolutely. So let's just take a classic case of a salesperson. Dave, remember the last time you walked into a Best Buy and you knew you were going in the store to buy a TV, to buy a video camera, to buy a DVD player. There was no question in your mind that you entered that store for one purpose, and that was to buy something. And you make your way to that particular area of the floor, and then you feel this automatic threat because there's a salesperson on the floor that has spotted you and that had made a beeline directly towards you with one question. Dave, can I help you find something? And you say, no, I'm just looking. You're not looking, you're buying. The fact that this salesperson has interfered with your plan gives you the idea that that opposition is an obstacle to you buying a TV. Whereas perhaps this salesperson, which all Best Buys are packed with, they have to in order to facilitate the end deal. What if that salesperson saw you come in the door and let you walk towards the TVs and gave you some time to evaluate your options? And then reading your body language, he could tell that you were ready to make a purchase. And the way that he told you is perhaps you looked up, you started looking around, and that was an opportunity for him to approach you. And in that scenario, your mind is much more open because now you realize it is necessary to interact with the salesperson in order for you to buy that TV. So salespeople in general tend to be viewed as opposition in a negative way because they're always interfering with the flow that you are choosing to pursue when purchasing something. Whereas if they could give you time, could give you space, you may tend to see that opposition as less threatening and perhaps more as an opportunity to conduct that transaction that is absolutely necessary to walk out. That's just one example I can think of.
One that came to mind early on when we started discussing this topic is a door-to-door salesman, and that is the prime example of a rejection is usually a slam the door in the face, but your goal as the salesman, and this could be almost in any situation, is to educate and dispel any fears that person has, that you're there to offer something that has value. How challenging is that for someone to do that job and then the role of education?
Well, Dave, that's very appropriate. And you know this just because we've been friends for some time, but I was actually a door-to-door salesman every year during college, and I worked for the Southwestern Company, phenomenal company based in Nashville, where we were taught and trained to sell educational homework study guides that covered every subject from kindergarten to college in one 5-volume set of books. And so the training was outstanding. We were exposed to wonderful leaders, and we were taught a system, and it involved working 80 hours a week, doing 35 demonstrations a day. And if we worked the system, ultimately we would be successful. So it became a matter of execution, very much rooted in discipline. But the core of what it was we did every single day was knock on doors to connect with potential buyers. And so what that process taught me is the art of conversation. And when we think about conversation, we just by default think of speaking. Whereas if you really think about who controls the conversation, it is the one that is listening. And this is what Southwestern taught me. If we listen close enough as salespeople, and as a matter of fact, as friends, as family members, as spouses, as professional servants, the better we learn to listen to what it is our audience is sharing, the better opportunity we have to serve them, to meet their need. Because if we learn to listen by asking the right questions, we will be able to gain from our audience exactly what it takes for them to be sold. In other words, if we listen closely enough, our audience will tell us exactly how they want to be sold. And that's based on the needs-based approach. It's a solution-based sale where we find a need based on the questions that we ask, and we fill it with the product or service that we have to provide.
You taught me so much in such a simple, brilliant phrase not too long ago when I was trying to negotiate some work, and it was ask the person you're talking to what their goals are in the next so many months. And in that question, they told me everything I needed to know to position myself to be the solution to their goals. And I don't know if you can expand on that, but I thought it was all about listening. It was one sentence. Tell me what your main objective is over the next 3 to 6 months. And I sat there. And once I heard my services presented, I knew there I am. I just became the solution to his problem.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. So two things on that, and thank you for that validation. That just further increases my conviction that the following two methods of communication are absolutely the most effective way to proceed. And the first of all, we've all probably heard before, is that a person does not care what you know until they first know that you care. Okay, a person does not care what you know until they first know that you care. And that's basically a cry for validation. I want to feel understood. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, acceptance rates way up there towards the top. So if you are trying to sell yourself as a service, as a product, and you start puking on them all the wonderful things you can do for them before you've taken the time to stop and understand where they are, understand what it is that they need, understand what at this particular point in their life would make things so much better. And by the way, we do that by asking questions such as the one you referenced. Dave, within the next 3 to 6 months, what is your primary area of focus? And you shut up and you listen. As hard as it is to remain silent, that is the exact moment when you learn how you need to position yourself in order to effect a sale. So that's the first thing. People do not care what you know until they know that you care. And the way you demonstrate that care is by asking them that question. What is most important to you in your life right now? And then you let them tell you. You resist the tendency to speak, and you open the two ears, twice as many mouths as you have, and you listen. The second of which is a method of communication that I was taught early on that was called the advice model. The advice model is an opportunity to give your audience the ability to influence you in the path that you pursue. For example, Dave, I started my career as a 22-year-old in the investment management world, where my primary role was to give people the assurance that investing money with me according to my plan was a wise decision. So it was about raising assets. And the way that I did that is through what I called niche-based marketing. I live in Nashville, the home of country music. Obviously, there is a large concentration of record label executives that live in Nashville. So I built my business with successful country music record label executives because they're all the same, relatively speaking. They all had the same interests. Most of them had the same needs. And if I could become an expert with one, chances are my credibility would be enhanced among the community. And so the way that I built a relationship with that first one, and I still remember it to this day, his name was Mark. I had an opportunity. I sat down with him. I said, Mark, I would love to build my investment business with successful country music executives like you. Do you think that's a good idea? Okay, so you think about what I've done. I paid him a compliment. I'd love to do business with people like you who are successful and in the music business. Do you think that's a good idea? Well, now I'm asking for his buy-in. Not only did he validate the idea that I had, that it was a good idea to do business with successful country music executives, he gave me the reassurance that it was a good idea. And his response was, well, absolutely, I think you did. We all make a lot of money and we don't know what to do with it. That was literally his response. And so my next question, and again, I'm asking for his advice. I said, thank you, Mark. If you were me, how would you do it? And then again, I turned my mouth off and I turned my ears on. From there, he put together a plan for me based on his experience, because after all, he knows more about the people that I want to do business with than I do, because it's a product of his surroundings. And so from there, he single-handedly designed my marketing plan for me, and he became committed to its success because it was his idea. It was his advice. And you think about the nature of advice, and this is the beauty of this system, is that when people give you their advice, they become committed to the success of the outcome because it is their own. Anytime you give someone advice about any area of life, you want to make sure that it stands up. And so you're going to take the time to make sure it works out. And so from there, Mark helped me build relationships with other country music producers, with country music publishers, with country music label executives, just because I took the time to ask for his advice on, if he were me, how would he do that? And so I had an opportunity to build my business in that specific niche just by giving Mark the opportunity to share with me based on the advice that he had gained over 20 years in the particular industry. So that, two different takes on communication, ultimately resting in our ability to uncover needs based on our perception of opposition, not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to build a relationship.
Relationship is key, and the switcheroo almost of, you want him to invest in you or you want her to invest in you based on their idea. You're investing in them with your time and your energy, but yet you want them to come back to you. And I can remember things like that for me when I was trying to break out of the TV news industry and go out on my own. My goal was to seek out people who were doing what I wanted to do and ask them similar things. This is before you and I ever got into this type of thinking or conversations. It's like, I know that if I want to do that, I got to talk to people who are doing it, and they're going to help me put me on the right track. And they're going to also look back and go, did he do it? Did it work? Is it going to validate their idea? And it's perfect.
No question. That's it. Again, opposition is natural to us as human beings. Whenever we feel threatened, whenever we feel out of our comfort zone, we are going to automatically oppose. Whereas if we just hang in there a little bit longer, we can actually see it transition from an obstacle to an opportunity. And as long as we don't shy away from the initial opposition that we're met with, we can really uncover the ability to positively influence someone just by showing care, concern, and a commitment to service, which ultimately we are all on this planet to do.
And don't worry about bad haircuts. Just wait a couple of weeks. They'll be okay again.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I definitely deserve that.
No, it looks good on you, Bo. Some people, a close haircut or a shaved head, it looks good if you have a good skull. And you've got a good skull.
I appreciate that.
Looking for a great at-home sauna at a great price? Get 5% off any indoor or outdoor sauna, cold plunge, or infrared sauna from Almost Heaven with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at checkout. For over 40 years, Almost Heaven saunas have been trusted as the top American home sauna manufacturer. Almost Heaven saunas deliver high-quality products and firmly stands behind the holistic benefits the sauna brings to your mind and your body. Again, get 5% off any order with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at almostheaven.com. There's also a direct link below this video.